It's about to be a head on a swivel Saturday for the Week 9 slate, baby. Glad to have y'all here, man. It's college football, nothing but college football every single day on this platform, the On3 YouTube channel, on this show, The Hard Count, which is, of course, the People's College Football Show, all right? It is October 22nd, Tuesday, October 22nd, 2024, the last one on the face of the planet. On this show, on Tuesdays, we do predictions. Man, it's been a wild year in college football, man. Been a wild year. That's another conversation for another time. But if you wanted to show somebody how wild of a year it's been, and they haven't been paying attention for the better part of the last, 6 months, and you say, hey, you want to know how crazy this season has been? You got Texas rolling into Nashville, Tennessee, and Vandy's ranked. Yeah, Texas and Vandy is a top 25 matchup, man. It's a beautiful thing. College football is a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing that y'all are dialed in during the month of October, probably at your job or watching while you're studying, however you're consuming this show, whether it be podcast or whether it be live and living color with us on the On3 YouTube channel. We're grateful to have y'all a part of this whole thing. Grateful to have y'all making this show what it is. I say it a lot, but like the best DMs that I get, which follow me there, Instagram, Twitter, at JD Piquel, the best messages, the best tweets I get are, hey, JD, listen in the car. Hey, I'm watching while I'm studying for my test. Whatever it is, like, we appreciate y'all being dialed in because I keep saying this, man. It is truly the People's College Football Show. Like, we do the content that we believe y'all want to see. So subscribe and let me know what content you want to see as we jump into the rest of this magical year, man. It hurts me a little bit, just a little bit, that we're in Week 9 because it feels like, I swear, yesterday we were getting ready to break down the Week 0 game with Florida State and Georgia Tech and Ireland. I'm not going to throw a stray at Florida State here, but I'm just saying things have changed quite a bit since we broke down that game, but we move right along. We got a lot of great games this weekend. Remember, Week 6, I believe it was, they told you, hey, don't worry about it, pumpkin patch, picnic, whatever you want to do, like that's the Saturday to do it. And then what happened? Bama rolled into Nashville and lost to Vandy, and we had chaos across the sport. Week 9 gives me a very similar vibe. A lot of big-time spreads. You see a lot of double-digit spreads. We'll have a lot of conversations throughout this prediction show of, well, what would have to happen to create the upset. And it could be one of those Saturdays, right? I'm just going to go ahead and get that out there right now. I will also say this. We do our very best to practice what we preach on this show. I have never once said, do not go to the pumpkin patch. I've said, do not go to the pumpkin patch on a Saturday. Like this past Friday, we got a lot of great pumpkin patches across the Nashville metro area. We went and got some pumpkins, had a good time. That was on Friday, though. No college football. That was going on while we were at the pumpkin patch. And then on Saturday, we were dialed in. So I'm just saying, take advantage of your opportunities here. It's all about picking your spots. So make sure you pick your spots as best you can. So we got LSU A&M. We'll break down here in a second. We'll do that first. We got Texas and Vandy. I already mentioned that one. Yo, that's going to be a fun game. I was tempted, very tempted to show up at that one. Not going to happen this week, but, it'll be a good one nonetheless happening in our backyard. Missouri at Alabama. If you're Alabama, man, like, hey, this is the draw the line in the sand moment for you here, all right? This is the moment where you say, no mas. No mas. For those of our friends that are English speakers listening to this show, that means no more. Does that happen in this game with Missouri coming to town? We'll find out. Also, we got Nebraska, Ohio State. Maybe not quite as hyped as we had anticipated when this whole year started, because the take going into the season was Nebraska rolling into Columbus now behind the Dylan Raiola campaign where they're 7-0, and that's not going to be the case. However, still worth breaking down, still worth our time. And then I want us to also jump around the college football world just a little bit. Shouts out to Wisconsin, though we're not talking about Wisconsin right now. What's going on in Oklahoma? Because Seth Littrell is no longer the OC, and like one of my favorite movies, one of the lines in that movie, National Treasure, is, hey, someone's got to take the fall here. I'll explain that more when we get to that segment. But what I'm trying to say is it's madness right now in Norman. There's a lot of that conversation that is, I think, being glossed over because Oklahoma isn't going to be in the college football playoff race or the SEC title race. Let's take a look at what's going on out there in Norman. And then we installed the defense last weekend as well, the clickbait defense, which is where we're just going to go ahead and call it the clickbait before it even gets into the stratosphere too heavily. So we'll talk about what's going on at Texas and talk about what's going on out there in their quarterback room. If you missed it yesterday, Quinn Ewers, no, he is not sitting out the rest of the season. That was a hacked Twitter account, and he is going to be playing this Saturday, as far as I know, against Vanderbilt, and going to be the guy starting that game for you. So again, we've talked a lot here. We've given you too much of a preface, but just we appreciate y'all being a part of this. We appreciate y'all allowing us to do this for a job. We do not take for granted for 1 second how lucky we are to talk college football for a living, man. Living the dream. All right, let's get to this one, man. LSU at Texas A&M. Now, interesting. This spread yesterday was favoring A&M by 3.5 points. Since then, it is now down to 2.5 points. Could be nothing. Could be something. We'll find out. 7:30 Eastern, ABC, Kyle Field. That place will be rocking. I've said it many times, man. I had the privilege of working local news for all of 2, maybe 3 months in College Station. They live and die with their Aggies. You probably already knew that, but I'm just telling you, this is the game now where they will be absolutely on fire within Kyle Field. They always are, but it'll be extra on fire for LSU rolling into town. Playoff game kind of vibe to it now. LSU unbeaten in the SEC, A&M unbeaten in the SEC. Kind of interesting parallels between their two seasons. A&M, they lose the opener to Notre Dame. Bounce back, they're swinging for the fence right now. Thinking college football playoff. Same deal for LSU. You lose the opener to USC in Vegas, and everyone's talking about Brian Kelly, and we got a meme where he's slamming the table, and it is what it is. Right now, y'all, LSU, they're very much so in control in the same way of their own college football playoff destiny and their SEC title destiny. Let's start with LSU here in terms of where they sit right now. Don't look now. They're starting to look very Brian Kelly-ish. And what I mean by that is when Brian Kelly got the job at LSU, nobody questioned could he win there. It was more so a matter of, how long is it going to take? And you're seeing this team now every single year take steps towards being what I would call a Brian Kelly team. Disciplined, they don't beat themselves. They start to play their best football as the year wears on. They're starting to play better defense. Shouts to Blake Baker. Starting to look very much so more like an LSU outfit out there in Baton Rouge. And that makes sense because it is an LSU outfit, but we understand now that first game of the year, you're like, oh boy, is this going to be one of those years? Is this going to be one of those years where we're, because we needed the USC win to feel good about our playoff aspirations, and then after you got the Ole Miss win, you're like, okay, let's go on a run now. Let's go get it. Again, not unfair to think about the college football playoff if you're out there in Baton Rouge right now. In fact, I think that probably would be the way that I'd be thinking if I'm a Tiger fan. Now, for Texas A&M, this game to me can be the verifier. You put the blue check next to A&M after a game like this if you beat LSU at the crib, because the Missouri game was really impressive. You body bagged a top 10 team in America, belt to behind. It is what it is. There's not a whole lot more to say about that. However, we truly have been a little bit cool on Missouri throughout the course of this season, even going back to media days. What I'm trying to say here is I don't know if Missouri in reality is a top 10 team. Now, you get credit for beating a top 10 team. I'm not trying to downplay that by any stretch of the imagination. But if you beat LSU now, after what LSU has shown throughout the course of this year, I have no more questions about A&M. And also looking at their schedule the rest of the way now, that would be a massive, massive step for them towards the college football playoff. Because you got South Carolina on the road, you got Auburn on the road, you got Texas, but you just need to get 3 of those. You just need 3. And I understand now that the one you're circling as the most difficult test now is Texas. Not saying anything about that game just yet. I'm just saying from a roster perspective, Texas is the most talented roster left on your schedule. That's not novel analysis. You can get this one. You can walk the tightrope on the road. Hey, you can drop that Texas game. If you were to drop that Texas game, still be in Atlanta and still more than likely be in the college football playoff. So the battle here for me is really interesting when I look at both these offenses. Texas A&M, a lot like good barbecue. Any good barbecue spot worth its salt. Shout out to Andy Staples. He can fact check me on this. But in my experience, you got a solid meat and 3 combo there. You got a great meat. You got some tremendous variety of sides there, whether it be some mac and cheese, maybe you got some fries, whatever it looks like, the sides are always really, really quality. And that's kind of where A&M is right now. The meat of this offense is the run game, the brisket, the ribs, Le'Veon Moss downhill, brother. That's who they want to be. Over the course of this season, Texas A&M, I understand you sprinkle in the Marcel Reed variable into this equation, so it's a little bit more balanced since then. But Colin Klein wants to run the ball. They're 37% pass right now on the year. They want to give Le'Veon Moss the football. I think to put a more fine point on this, or maybe a more broad point on this, they want to get the football to their best players. On third down, they want to go to Jabri Barber. Had a great game last week against Mississippi State. They want to get their matchups with Noah Thomas as well, and that's kind of the sides here. A great barbecue experience. You can give me good brisket, and I'm like, okay, cool, that was awesome. Maybe I'll come back for that. But if you give me good brisket and good mac and cheese, now we got a complete experience going on. And the sides here, like I said, are the pass game. It is Jabri Barber. It is Noah Thomas. It is Connor Wegman. How much can you put on Connor Wegman's plate in this spot? Remains to be seen. But if they can get the pass game going, you got the sides, you got the brisket, you got the run game, like all these things now work together to where A&M, that would be their style of game they want to play. And the best example of that is the Missouri game. You saw it against Missouri. The pass game's working, got the sides working, got the run game working. Le'Veon Moss has a day and a half on the ground. That's who A&M, I believe, wants to be if you were to give Colin Klein and Mike Elko some truth serum. So we'll talk about the defense here in a second for both sides, but the LSU offense, to me, staying in this like culinary metaphor world, I think they're just like a really strong two-course meal. You got great dinner, you got great dessert. That's who they want to be. Now, the dinner for them is the run game. Maybe a better way to put that is the dinner for them is the offensive line. Because like that was the talking point going into the season is Will Campbell is that dude. He's got the number 7 patch. I'd love if they gave him the number 7 jersey. Like that's a whole other discussion to have. Give Will Campbell number 7. You got quarterbacks out here wearing 33. I digress. That's like the rare ribeye for them. Keep it simple, nothing too fancy. We're going to punch you in the mouth. If you can swing back, God bless you, but like that's who we are. And what they found in Caden Durham, that young back, has been a game changer for them. Over 100 yards against Arkansas this past weekend. They're going to move the line of scrimmage. Do you have someone who can make someone miss in space? Caden Durham, to this point in the year, has been that answer for them. Now he's a little bit dinged up, so you hope he's able to be at max efficiency when it's time to play this game. But if they can get the main course going, then guess what? You get to have some dessert. All right? Now, similar to the metaphor we made about A&M and their offense, the dessert for LSU is the pass game because they love their wide receivers. But you only get to experience dessert if you experience dinner first, right? Like you're only able to maximize Kyron Lacy if those defensive backs are having to worry about getting downhill and tackling Caden Durham or having to take on Will Campbell in the alleyway, like whatever it looks like. So I think that's kind of the thing to watch here. How much are they able to maximize that part of the offense? Because it's very obvious now, like Joe Sloan trusts Garrett Nussmeier to sling it, man. And I wouldn't be surprised if we got into a spot here where it's a stalemate up front between the LSU offensive line and the A&M defensive line, because those are two of the best units, respectively, in the SEC at their position group. They trust Nussmeier to sling it, man. You saw him throw it 50 times against Ole Miss. But this thing will really get cranking. It'll be a complete meal, a complete experience for them if you can run the football, feed Caden Durham, let the offensive line eat, and then kind of pick your matchups with Kyron Lacy. Similar to what we said about A&M. On third down, they love Aaron Anderson. So just a little Easter egg for you. Keep an eye on that. They love Aaron Anderson in the slot, and he's going to be a guy they try to feed when it comes time for them to pick up the sticks, all right? So we mentioned the offenses. It really does come down to me, what you get from the defensive line for both sides, because they're kind of similar in a lot of ways. Both want to stop the run and rush the passer. That's obviously the responsibility for the defensive line. But in this situation now, with what we laid out both offenses want to do, the defensive line has to win on first and second down to be able to then get after the passer. Like Brady Swinson, like they want to allow him to go hunt. Nick Scorton, they want him to go hunt, respectively, for LSU and A&M. So who can step up against the run to then go hunt the quarterback? And so when we break this game down, man, like I think if Texas A&M gets to play their style of football, like we saw them do against Missouri, where it's complementary, Connor Wegman's able to elevate those sides of a Noah Thomas, of a Jabri Barber, you go down the line there, that would be, I think, the game that A&M wins. Like if A&M plays their style of ball, they win. It's like Vince Vaughn, man. I love Vince Vaughn. But Vince Vaughn plays himself in every single movie. And I'll watch every single movie. I think it's awesome. But, like, Vince Vaughn's not playing a wide array of characters. He's playing Vince Vaughn. Whereas I think LSU's got a little more Leo DiCaprio to him. Not the first time we've made the comp between LSU and Leo DiCaprio, but stick with me here. I think LSU can win a sloppy style of game. I think if this thing gets a little bit weird and there's turnovers and neither side can run the football because they're both selling out to stop the run, and Whit Weeks is having his way up front with Le'Veon Moss, like if that happens, I like LSU to have a little bit more range and adaptability to the role of this football game. Now, here's the other thing for me, too. Watching Georgia and Texas, to me, just reemphasized the importance of how much you've been stress tested throughout the course of a season. And A&M has had the stress test, okay? Don't get it twisted. Notre Dame game, it's a really good Notre Dame defense. All right, that Notre Dame offense has progressed over the course of the year, but that Notre Dame game, it's a good stress test. It's in week 1. Same deal with LSU. We mentioned the parallels. Great stress test in week 1. The USC loss isn't aging how you would like it to age, but ball up top. Let's keep it going. I think more recently, though, I appreciate that LSU had to beat Ole Miss in Baton Rouge. Dramatic? Sure. Good stress test. On the road against Arkansas. Made light work. I think that's a good stress test. Texas A&M, again, I love the Missouri win for the resume. From a stress test perspective, like, I don't know if I think that's like the heavy bar that I want you to step under before you go play LSU. Now, it is in College Station. That absolutely counts for something. But at the end of the day, man, I think you got to kind of got to go with your gut here. So I'll give you my prize pick square that I love, and then I'm going to go with our prediction for the game. So the prize pick square that I love, Kyron Lacey, his reception or his longest reception number right now is listed at 26.5 yards. I think he'll have more than that, so go ahead and take the more there. A&M has struggled at times with explosive plays, and it's not been a thing where they just get beat one-on-one necessarily. It's been a lot of play kind of breaks down, guys out of position, and then the opposition is able to capitalize on that. You saw that against Arkansas. You saw that, honestly, earlier in the season as well. However, take the more there with Kyron Lacey. Also, like I mentioned, they're going to try and feed him the football. So our prediction in this game, like I said, to some degree, man, you just kind of got to go with your gut. I think if you asked me to take the better defensive line, I would take A&M. However, I think the more established head coach is Brian Kelly. The quarterback that I trust more to this point in the year is Garrett Nussmeier. If Connor Wegman is able to elevate, like I just mentioned, and take advantage of where I think the LSU defense is most gettable, well, then A&M's going to win this football game. But again, there's more ways, I think, in more situations that could unfold where I think LSU would be at an advantage. So for that reason, I will take LSU. I will take them close. All right, there's no scenario that's going to surprise me here, but I will take LSU to win the football game, 26-21 in College Station. Nothing down on A&M. It is what it is. But I think that, again, LSU, with the experience, with what I think they have on the roster and the way they're trending right now and the stress test, I like the Tigers to win. And obviously, with them being dogs on the road, I will take them to cover. God bless America. All right? How about that? All right, so this is a little show note here for those of y'all that are tuned in live. And if you're listening on podcast, I guess it still applies to you. So I got my phone right here on my left-hand side, your right-hand side, I suppose, if you're watching. And typically, every single live show, like we respect the process around here. We put our phone on Do Not Disturb. All right? Now, however, my beautiful wife is 37 and a half weeks pregnant, meaning we are in the red zone. So if my phone starts buzzing and I see it as my wife, I will say, hello, game time? All right, let's go have a baby. Like, that's where we're at right now. So the point being there, we could end up having the show cut short at any given time throughout the course of these next few weeks. So I appreciate y'all rolling with us, appreciate y'all understanding, but we are on baby alert right now. So if you see me checking my phone, that's why. All right, quick sip of caffeine. Let's talk some Oklahoma here in just a second. All right, we're juiced up. The biggest Tuesday of the week. Let's keep it rolling. So Oklahoma has had a unideal season, to put it simply. Let's start here. Oklahoma fires Seth Littrell, the offensive coordinator, and I think Oklahoma fans had been chanting for this for the better part of this season, and I get it. Like, you look at the numbers offensively for them, scoring 22 points a game. It's 93rd in America. They're averaging 4.1 yards a play. That's 132nd in America. Like, bottom of the barrel kind of stuff. And so to some degree, you're like, hey, man, somebody's got to be held responsible here for this. And I alluded to this at the top of the live show. One of my favorite movies, don't knock it, National Treasure with Nicolas Cage. Nicolas Cage plays a character named Ben Gates. And at the end of the movie now, they get the treasure, vibes are high, everything's good. However, they still, did break the law to get the national treasure. Spoiler, they stole the Declaration of Independence. And so the police chief is talking to Ben Gates, and he says, Ben, is there anything I can do for you here? You found this treasure. Can we do anything for you here? He says, you know what? I'd really love to not go to prison. And the police chief looks at him and he says, someone's got to go to prison, Ben. I think that's the same situation here. It's obviously not prison we're talking about, so that's a good thing if you're Seth Littrell. hey, somebody's got to be held responsible here for the offensive output or the lack thereof offensively for Oklahoma. And to be real, like I said, I get it, and I'm not in the room in Norman, but y'all, we've been saying this since the offseason. If Jackson Arnold could make up for the what you don't have on offense situation, vibes could be great. However, you're asking a lot of a first-year starting quarterback in Jackson Arnold, and we've seen this whole thing play out. There's only so much a man can do as the OC at Oklahoma, man. I feel for the guy a little bit. You're breaking in a new offensive line in the most difficult conference from a trench perspective in America, arguably. You have the strength of your offense, which is your wide receiver room, which we were fired up about before the year started. Have a CVS receipt length of injury report every single week. Like, you do not have your fastball offensively. And I understand there was excitement about Jackson Arnold, and I still think that it's probably a little bit too soon to define what his college career is going to be. But, like, I mean, my guy's a first-year starting quarterback in the SEC. Like, yeah, it might take a second. I don't know if it matters if you have Seth Luttrell back there or if you have Jeff Lebby or you got Andy Reid. Like, I think the situation kind of is what it is. And that's not me trying to dunk on Oklahoma. I'm just trying to add some context here. Yes, someone's got to be responsible. But if we're being real about this, I don't know that it's all the way on Seth Luttrell. I think some of it's bad luck. I think some of it's personnel. And I think some of it's just straight up, you got to find a way to do more. And that's the other part of this, too. Like, if you're an Oklahoma fan, you're yelling at your podcast machine or yelling at your laptop watching on YouTube. You're saying, yeah, like, JD, we get it. It's not all on him. But you got to do more. You got to do more with what we have on this roster, with the expectations at Oklahoma. You got to do more. And that's definitely true. Could you get more out of your offense? I think it's hard for me to sit here and tell you without, a shadow of a doubt, no, the offense is what it is. I hear that. However, is that changing the record? I don't think so. Are you beating Texas? I don't think so. Are you beating Tennessee? Maybe you make that game a little bit more interesting, but, like, that Tennessee defense is what it is, man. The South Carolina operation, like, say what you want about what South Carolina hasn't been over the course of the last year, that is a legit defensive line. With your offensive line, it was not going to go the way that you wanted it to go. Maybe it's not as ugly, but, like, that wasn't a game that I felt like Oklahoma was going to win going into that thing. So now, the latest development outside of Seth Luttrell being fired as your offensive coordinator is you go back to Jackson Arnold as your QB1. This is where I think there's maybe a little glimmer of hope. Because the conversation like a week and a half ago was, all right, Jackson Arnold going to sit the rest of the year more than likely behind true freshman Michael Hawkins Jr. And then, we're all smart people here. We can all understand what quarterbacks typically do when they're not going to play at one school. They find another school to go to. So that was the conversation. Well, what if, assuming Jackson Arnold ends up portaling somewhere else? That was the assumption. Well, now, Jackson Arnold being thrown the keys to this offense, and what happens postseason, I have no idea. I have no idea. I can't tell the future. But all I will say is all that preseason pressure around Jackson Arnold to uphold the standard at Oklahoma and for Oklahoma to be a surprise team in the SEC and all the receivers they had, like, all that pressure is now gone. And while pressure is privilege and you would like there to be that pressure now on Oklahoma to be able to, save the season in some ways, I think Jackson Arnold is living out the movie Max Keeble's Big Move. Quoting a lot of movies here today, it is what it is. In that movie, Max Keeble, maybe it's Keebler. I think it's Keeble. Max Keeble finds out his family is going to move. And so my guys at school, like, I'm not even going to be here next year. And I don't know if that's Jackson Arnold's case, but I will say the pressure is off Max Keeble where he's like, I can just be free, do what I want to do, live my life. And again, I'm not making a take here that Jackson Arnold transfers after the year. That's not what I'm saying at all. Do not hear me incorrectly. But again, the pressure off Jackson Arnold here is massive. He now can just go out there and sling it. Nobody's looking at Oklahoma every single week. No one's targeting them as the next college game day game. I'm just saying now, house money is a dangerous thing to play with. And so Oklahoma's rolling into this game against Ole Miss, and the spread's like 20 points or something like that. I'm just saying, wouldn't be surprised if a five-star quarterback with the pressure off his shoulders ended up being a positive thing for Oklahoma. Not saying they win the football game, but maybe, just maybe, we start to think differently about Jackson Arnold and his future now in Norman. Not a prediction. I'm just saying keep an eye on that. That's worth noting. Last thing I'll say here, the Brent Venables conversation obviously gets a lot of momentum right around now because, hey, things went how they went against South Carolina. You got to fire an OC. And so what does that mean about Brent Venables and his job security? If you want to hold Brent Venables responsible for the roster, totally fair. Like, that's absolutely within the realm of, I think, what's acceptable when it comes to blame for him. I think we'd be remiss if we didn't remember, hey, this team did win 10 games last year, right? Like, he's proven he can coach football. You got one bad year, which was the first year where you had the portal exodus and you go and win 6 games. Cool. It is what it is. You win 10 games the next year, and then this year you roll into the season with the roster you have. Again, if you want to blame him for that, totally fair. But I don't know that we define Brent Venables by his first year in the SEC with a brand spanking new offensive line, with a new quarterback, 44% production back on offense. Like, it kind of just is what it is right now. And so to say that you know without a shadow of a doubt, hey, Brent Venables is not the guy, come on, man. Come on. I get it. We want to be passionate about the greatest sport on the face of planet Earth. I'm all here for it. I feel the same way to some degree about the passion part of this, but at the same time, like, you hired Brent Venables for the long haul, for the culture, for the way he does things, for the way that he gets Oklahoma. Like, let's let him marinate a little bit. Let's not be knee-jerky because the first year in the SEC isn't going exactly how you would have hoped. Like, we're talking about the sky falling. Like, Oklahoma could still rattle off a few wins here, have a couple of statement situations, and maybe things are different for them as we finish out the season. Like, Oklahoma's not dead in the water. Let's all just make sure we're on the same page there. Does it look great? Does it look bleak? Yeah, it doesn't look awesome right now. But again, around Brent Venables, let's simmer down a little bit here. Let's all take a chill pill, and we'll see where we are here when we get to January. Let's attack the portal, and let's have a different roster this time next year. If you're calling for Brent Venables' head, I respect the passion, but I think you're way out of bounds there. So we keep on rolling here. We keep on rolling. Hey, a quick word. Should have done this earlier, but Prize Picks bringing you the hard count today. Good folks over there, man. As our one of our producers, Trey Yanity, would say, hey, just good folks. Good folks out there. Code hard count, $5 in lineups, gets you $50 in promo funds. I kept saying it. We're on a heater, I kept saying, I do not know how long this will last. We might be nearing the end of this thing here. So if you faded us, you're dead to us. If you followed, we're going to circle the wagons again this week. This past weekend, didn't go our way. It didn't, all right? We're going to just be real about it. Didn't go our way. We had the more on Dylan Gabriel's total touchdowns. That hit. And then I believe we had the less on then we had the more on the Isaiah Bond receptions. Had it at 4. He got 2. Ball up top. We keep on going. Okay, so again, code hard count, $5 in lineups, circling the wagons this week, $50 in promo funds. All right, so go ahead and get after it there. I lied to y'all. We had Carson Beck attempts. That hit. And we had the Isaiah Bond more in receptions. That did not hit. But like I said, ball up top, keep a good thing going. Let's lock in. Let's have a tremendous weekend this weekend, all right? Okay, let's get to this one here. Texas at Vandy. In our own backyard, nonetheless. Right out there. I don't know directionally where it is in relation to where I'm sitting right now, but it's not far. Okay, Texas going to Vanderbilt. Texas, 18.5-point favorites, huh? Rolling into West End. Interesting. 4:15 Eastern on the SEC Network, First Bank Stadium. I said it at the top of the show. I'll say it again. If you want to show someone just how bonkers this season has been in college football, dude, it's a top 25 matchup. The Fighting Diego Pavias are ranked. God bless America. God bless college football. Texas obviously ranked. If you're Vandy, man, like I said it about Jackson Arnold, and I think the same logic applies to Vanderbilt. It's house money. House money is a dangerous place to be. You've already beaten Bama. Like this season, I know nobody's going to say this within the building, but I'll say it for the college football public. Vanderbilt has already overachieved, both from a wins-losses perspective on their over-under win total, and then in terms of the brand of ball they're playing, in terms of the way that they have just rebranded what Vanderbilt football is right now. Like this year is a success. You could get blown the doors off in this game, lose 50-0. And I don't think anybody looks at this season in a negative way for Vanderbilt. So that is what it is. I'll say that right there. The pressure is all on Texas. It is. Because they had a weird week. We'll talk about that in a second. But interesting note here. Who was the last team to play Georgia and then roll into Nashville? Having a foggy memory. Oh, yeah, that's right. Alabama. So whoever's making the schedule has got some Vanderbilt rooting interest potentially because they gave them Texas and Bama post-Georgia at the crib. So we'll see what happens there. For Texas, super weird week, man. Super weird week. And I say super weird week. It's Tuesday if you're watching this live, Wednesday if you're listening on podcast. You lose to Georgia. And then on Monday, a sports media account gets hacked saying that Quinn Ewers is leaving for the NFL draft, which, of course, is not true. Did not happen. He will be playing in this game. And then also, it's just been a weird game in general where Quinn Ewers doesn't look like himself and Arch Manning comes in the game. And, like, it's just everyone sort of feels – I don't know if feels weird is the right word, but that whole situation felt weird to me. Here's what I will say. If you're Texas, this is a chance now to once again flex the championship traits. Sounds weird because you're playing Vandy. Roll with me here. Championship teams, what do? They compartmentalize well. They don't let one game turn into two games. They don't let one weird situation impact what happens on Saturday. Like, they compartmentalize at a high level. This is the game, if you're Texas, where you got to compartmentalize. This is the chance now. Also, I would say this too. The Bama game obviously benefits Vanderbilt from a confidence perspective. If you're Texas, if you're Steve Sarkisian trying to get your team ready to roll, you can point to that Bama game and say, hey, look, you don't think they're capable of getting you? Because Bama got. All right, and we can get got too if we don't bring our best to the table. So this will be a lot of fun, man. 18.5 points. What would it take for Vandy to upset Texas? At the like, what would go into this? Well, here's a question, just in general. Why do people fail easy tests in school? They don't take it seriously. They don't study. To put it simply, they don't lock in. If Texas doesn't lock in, Vanderbilt has proven they are not old Vanderbilt, and they have some guys now, most importantly Diego Pavia, to get it done and to make things a little bit interesting for you on your Saturday. It's also worth noting here, Vanderbilt, their offense, kind of some option base to it. The option is built on making you continue to be disciplined. If you're not disciplined, you got a decision maker at quarterback and enough options around him, again, true to form, true to the name, the option, to where they can make you pay. If you're misaligned just one time, we're north and south for a gain, potentially a big gain, and potentially a touchdown. Like, that's the way they beat you. And so, again, this spot for Texas, if you're undisciplined, you got the Georgia hangover, you're rolling in, you're wearing the sunglasses, taking the airborne. Vibes could be a little bit tricky early on in this game. The Bama blueprint, I think, is really what I would circle if I'm Vanderbilt in terms of how they could win this football game. Because how did they win that football game? And Steve Sarkisian said it in his press conference already this week. Alabama ran 48 plays. That's not a lot. More importantly, that's not enough against Vanderbilt. The early turnovers led to some points, and then Vanderbilt, it's funny to say this out loud, Vanderbilt squeezed life out of Bama. It wasn't like Bama couldn't score. Bama scored 35. It was that Bama didn't have enough opportunities after they got behind to come back and beat Vanderbilt, to go score enough points. So for Texas, you don't play clean, things get weird, you may not see the football for a while. Like, you hope your defensive line and your front seven's up for the task, but like, I was talking to someone in the NFL world yesterday, and they were like, hey, listen, I was watching another player that was playing against Vanderbilt as a linebacker, and he's like, that Diego Pavia kid, he can roll a little bit here. Like, I don't know if he's a quarterback in the NFL, but that dude's a real deal athlete. He will hurt you. Just food for thought there. So I think ultimately for Texas to lose this football game, the tough part for me is it would require all of us just being wrong about Texas, because that would mean they have two bad showings in a row against Georgia and then against Vandy. I have a hard time getting on board with that. I do, because I think if Quinn Ewers has another bad showing, he's not the quarterback I thought he was, and that's not trying to sound so doom and gloom, but I think more specifically, like, the matchup for Texas here is on the perimeter. That's typically going to be the matchup that Texas tries to attack when it comes to blowing games wide open. Vanderbilt's allowing 7.7 yards a pass, 87th in America. Texas is top 20 in yards per pass offensively. Translation, you can't hang with us. You can't on the perimeter. I mean, you shouldn't be able to hang with us. Again, if Quinn Ewers is rusty, we see some turnovers, the offensive line, and maybe Vanderbilt rolls the kitchen sink out there and things get exotic from a blitz perspective. Maybe, just maybe, it rolls out that way. However, I do think Texas ends up playing clean. I think they compartmentalize well. I think, again, we keep saying the Texas culture is different. It's different. It's different. If it's different, you see it in this game. And I do think we see it in this game. I'll take Texas to win. Y'all, I'll take Vandy to cover. 18.5 is a lot of points. The way that Vanderbilt plays offensive football, I think they're going to try and shorten this game. I think they'll have some success doing it. Expect an interesting first half, and then Texas to pull away and beat Texas in the second half, and ultimately the Longhorns get out of Nashville post-Georgia with a dub. So, again, we'll take Texas to win the football game and Vandy to cover the 18.5 in a top 25 matchup in Nashville. Gotta freaking love it, man. You gotta love it. You got to love it. Hey, appreciate everyone tuned in live. Just our call to action. We do it every show. If you could like the video, subscribe to the channel. We appreciate you for that. Costs nothing to do that. Helps the show. Helps us get more content to you that you want to see. So thank you in advance for that. A few more things to talk about here. We got our clickbait defense we're installing in just a second. Nebraska at Ohio State. Also going to be a little bit intriguing. Let's start here, though. Let's go to the Missouri-Alabama game. This is one that kind of flew under the radar for me a little bit when we look at this slate. Alabama's a 13.5-point favorite at the crib, 3:30 Eastern, ABC, Bryant-Denny Stadium. If you're Alabama, a lot of movie references throughout today's show. We don't apologize. Every single, movie that has a plane or a spaceship or anything that flies, there's always that scene where the pilot is, barreling towards the surface of the earth and someone next to them or someone in their ear is saying, pull up, pull up, pull up. This is that moment for Bama. Lose to Vandy, ball up top. Lose to Tennessee, we're still hurtling towards the face of the earth. Pull up, pull up, pull up. This has to be that moment where they pull up because you got Missouri rolling in town. You are a 2-touchdown favorite. 10-2, it's a discussion for the college football playoff. Might need a little bit of help from some of these teams across other conferences to feel great about your chances. But 10-2 Bama, it's a discussion. Let's talk about it. 9-3, you're not making the playoff. And guess what? There's riots in Tuscaloosa. Vibes are not good. People are not okay. All right, we'll say that much. Now, if you're Missouri, as underwhelming as parts of this year have been, and this isn't me dunking on Missouri, this is just talking facts here, the Boston College game, far too close for comfort. The Vanderbilt game. Now, Vandy, shouts to Vandy, a better win than maybe folks gave credit for originally, but still Vandy. Missouri, if you're going to be a team that competes for the college football playoff, you probably should have made much more light work of that than overtime. It is what it is. The A&M game is embarrassing. The Auburn game, Auburn's, I think, a tough out in a lot more of a way than people give them credit for, but still, if Missouri's going to be a team that ends up being in that college football playoff discussion, you should be a lot more convincing, and you should at least have had a better showing against A&M. That's one part of this. As underwhelming as this part of the year has been to this point for Missouri, guess what? Still a one-loss SEC team right now. And you got Alabama in the most gettable spot you've ever had them, short of them being at your place. All people will remember about this year, if you beat Alabama, it won't be that it was Kalen DeBoer's first year. It won't be that Alabama just lost to Tennessee the week before. It'll be that Missouri rolled in Tuscaloosa and beat Alabama. That's all they'll write songs about now, okay? Just so we're on the same page there. So kind of a tale of two situations here. Alabama, ultimate chill pill opportunity. If they can beat Missouri, it's a ranked win. Would make you feel better about life. Be a good thing. Missouri, again, chance to just rebrand your season. When they print out the T-shirts of the tour that you went on this year, they would have on the front, beat Bama. Wouldn't it be a bad way to live? Now, if you're Missouri, man, I don't think you can do what Tennessee did to Bama. And what Tennessee did was just take a club out of the basement and start beating Bama over the head with it when it came to running the football. Ran for over 200 yards. It is what it is. So where does that leave us? Well, first, you hope and you pray that Brady Cook and his lower body is in a good place going into this game. If you're not a religious person, now might not be a bad time to start out there in Columbia. I think you need Brady Cook to be mobile in this football game. You need him to be at his best. Because B- Brady Cook, I don't think that gets it done for you in this game from a health perspective or from an output perspective. So going back to what I said, if you don't have the bludgeoning run game that you would like to have in this football game, and again, if you have it, we'll talk about it in a different way on Sunday. But again, I don't think that's the way you beat Bama today or on Saturday. So what do you got to do? You feed Luther Burden your all-everything wide receiver, Baby Gerber style. You spoon feed him the ball. And I don't want to be overly dramatic. Y'all, he has 0 games with double-digit catches. What are we doing here? What are we talking about? He has 7 targets a game. 50 targets over 7 games. Right around 7 targets a game. That's not going to cut it. There's no way that's going to cut it. He's your best player on your football team. Why are we minimizing the impact he can have? And I get it. You say, hey, JD, teams know Luther Burden's really good too. They try to take him away. 7 targets, not that bad. It's not that bad. It's not that good. It's not nearly enough for what Luther Burden brings to the table, for what he could be for your football team. Say, JD, okay, well, they double cover him. I know. You know what else exists? Jet sweeps, screens, direct snaps to my guy. For goodness sake, get him the football. And again, I'm oversimplifying it. I'm not in the locker room in Missouri. I get all that. They know a lot more about their team than I do. But as a person outside looking in that knows what Luther Burden brings to the table, get him the ball, man. Get him the freaking ball, because here's the deal. He is, I believe, the one player on your roster that could switch sidelines tomorrow and be a dog for Bama. Now, Theo Weiss Jr. also had offers from Alabama out of high school. I get that. You need a big game from him too. Because, again, if you're not going to beat him in the run game, you got to go aerial assault. And Bama's a little bit dinged up in the secondary now. So it's Luther Burden, it's Theo Weiss Jr. Theo Weiss, you got one game over 100 yards. I'm not knocking it, but if you want to have another one, this is the game to do it, brother. All right? This is the game for Alabama. Let's talk about them. Let's talk about where they're at right now. Kalen DeBoer, I fully believe, is a savant offensively. Nobody's questioning it. The dude calls offensive plays like Bach is on the keys, like Ali in the ring. You hear me. Dude knows offense. Guy knows ball, contrary to what Twitter would tell you. They have undeniably improved in the passing game. That's not even up for debate. Like, you don't even need to look at numbers. You can if you want to, but you don't even need to look at numbers to know that Jalen Milroe has elevated his game under Kalen DeBoer in his offense. We get that. However, in this game, let's run the ball. Okay? Let's run the ball. The reason why I say that is because there is tangible videotape evidence of Texas A&M just absolutely abusing the Missouri defense up front. Now, I'm not telling you that's who Missouri is. I'm not telling you that they're going to have the same kind of effort against Alabama that they did against A&M. Not to say it's an effort thing, but I'm not telling you they play as poorly as they did against A&M. But, y'all, let's test it out. Let's try. Because you look at the ingredients, you got a freaking Avenger at quarterback in Jalen Milroe. Let him tote the rock. You got multiple, yes, I said multiple offensive linemen that will have NFL careers. Let them go bully mode. You got really solid backs. Do you have what you've had in the past? Do you have Jahmyr Gibbs back there? No, but guess what? They can get the job done for you. And honestly, like I'm all for the RPO. I'm all for putting the ball out in space. Ryan Williams, get him his money. I totally get that. However, like there's a certain point where you just got to say, we are the bully. We're drawing the line in the sand. We're going to go do what A&M did to you and run for right around 200 yards. That, I think, is the path to winning this football game. And so when it comes to our prediction here, man, like there just comes a time in every person's life you got to draw a line in the sand. Say enough is enough. The Tennessee game went how it went. That hurts. The Vandy game went how it went. That hurts. Did the Georgia game happen, or are we all just living in a simulation? Don't actually answer that. But I'm just saying, I don't really remember Alabama since the first half of that game looking at all resembling what they were in that first half against Georgia. Let's get back to the basics. At the end of the day, you're still Bama. And that's not me trying to be down on Missouri. The spread is what it is for a reason. Jalen Milroe is who he is for a reason. Like, let's go back to bully ball. Let's be who we want to be up front. And let's run the ball. So, again, I think that this team still has some Saban traits within them. Saban still recruited the majority of this team. Saban still has an offense out there, an office still in Tuscaloosa. I think Bama wins this football game. I'll take it a step further. I think Alabama covers the 13.5. So we're kind of buying the dip here on Bama with the showing against Tennessee. But, again, I think they win. I think they cover 2 touchdowns. Part of this, for me, truly, if we're just going to be on the same page here, I don't really trust Missouri all that much. I love Eli Drinkwitz. I mean, if you're asking me today, I think he's probably the pick for me, at least, for the next head coach at Florida, assuming that what we all believe will happen at some point happens. But I'm going to go with Bama to win and to cover. All right, a little bit of caffeine here, and we'll get back to the party. Yep, that's good. That's good stuff right there. Okay, let's get to this defense we installed last week. Now, I played offensive football when I was fortunate enough to play college football. But we got to go ahead and install the clickbait defense yet again. Last week we installed it. I feel like everyone a part of this program, y'all included, ran it to perfection. Here's the clickbait that we got to defend against this week. Quinn Ewers in the first half against Georgia, it's not all working for him, right? It's Georgia on the other side. It is what it is. Gets pulled. We'll talk about that in a second, but he gets pulled. Arch Manning enters into the game. And one, my jaw was on my living room floor as soon as that happened. That's first. Second, Arch Manning doesn't really light it up necessarily. Has some success, doesn't light it up, but you knew the quarterback controversy take was going to be out there. At best, people were going to say, well, who's the quarterback at Texas now? At worst, you were going to hear people say, hey, Quinn Ewers, man, isn't the guy. We saw it against Georgia. Like, if you want to go win national titles, you probably got to beat Georgia. Quinn Ewers can't beat Georgia. By that formula, Quinn Ewers can't be our guy this year. And we've talked about this a few times, a little bit, not irritated, because we're never irritated talking college football, a little bit surprised we have to have this conversation right now, but we will anyway. So here's what I will say. Arch Manning getting subbed in felt a little bit weird to me. Now, if you've watched this show or you just know me personally, I have been on the front line saying, hey, Arch Manning is going to be really good at Texas. I believe for a long time. Whenever they throw him the keys, you feel good about the future out there on the 40 acres, all right? Hear me clearly. However, the thing that felt weird to me was, hey, if we're Texas, struggling a little bit offensively, trying to get something going, trying to get some rhythm, and the pivot we make, the adjustment we make, is to pull Quinn Ewers and put in a redshirt freshman in Arch Manning. It's not, let's get more creative with our pre-snap movement and run the football. It's not, let's get Quinn Ewers some easy completions and just get him in a rhythm. It's, no, take out our starting quarterback that won us the Big 12 last year and beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa. That's the best pivot we have. And I want to also say, Steve Sarkisian has forgotten more about his football team, more about quarterback play than I will ever know. So I just completely surrender that talking point right there. But again, just from the outside looking in, to attack Georgia, the best pivot for us is to bring in a redshirt freshman and take out that quarterback, not something else. That's all I'll say. Felt weird to me. Again, the clickbait take is, hey, man, Quinn Ewers just isn't the guy. He must have hit his ceiling. For me, I'm just like, okay, if Quinn Ewers isn't the guy, let's just say that's the case now. What do you think a redshirt freshman is going to do for you? What do you think Arch Manning, the redshirt freshman, subbing him in against one of the best defensive staffs in college football, is going to do for you? We think that's the right answer? And again, this is not me attacking the Texas coaching staff. This is me talking to the folks that want to say Quinn Ewers has run his course. What are we talking about? What are we talking about? Like, Arch Manning brings the mobile element. Totally understand that. Arch Manning, as good as I think he's going to be, reiterated in that game, there's going to be some growing pains if you roll with 16. This year, that is. Here's the deal, man. This roster at Texas, it's not a growing pains kind of roster. It's not. You got a defense that is number one in darn near every category in America. You got an offensive line that's experienced as all get out. You got weapons that can go win for you in the perimeter. Like, there's not a lot of other pieces on this team that are going to experience growing pains along with Arch Manning. And so for that reason, let Arch Manning have those growing pains behind closed doors as much as possible. His time is coming. But to say that the guy who beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa, won the Big 12, got you to the college football playoff, throttled Michigan, and Michigan is what they are right now, but defensively still a good football team. Like, what are we doing? I don't get it. I think in college football, we're so passionate that sometimes that passion blinds us a little bit, and we have this grass is greener syndrome. Y'all, sometimes the grass is just green. Both sides. The grass is green. I hate to use this cliche. The grass is green where you water it. I'll tell you what now. You're still watering that Arch Manning grass right now. Quinn Ewers' grass has grown, to use too many alliterations there. Like, we're such in a hurry to get to the unknown that Arch Manning can be. He's going to be great. But right now, Quinn Ewers is your guy. And the Georgia game should not deter you from that idea and from that reality. It should not take away from everything he's done to this point as the quarterback at Texas. So we feel strongly about this, as you well know. This is not an anti-Arch Manning take. This is not an anti-Texas staff take at all. Do not hear me incorrectly. But the people saying Quinn Ewers isn't the guy, I would really ask you to do some soul searching, because I don't see it. I don't see it. That's just me. That's just me. Okay, let's get to this now. Let's keep a good thing going now. I want to talk about one more game here before we roll out and have a tremendous rest of our Tuesday. Hey, a little Easter egg now. I don't want to promote it on this show too heavily because we haven't taped it yet. We have a guest for tomorrow's show that once we have that taped, we will promote it on the social channels at JD Pickell, Twitter, and on Instagram. So if you want to know who's on the show tomorrow or who we are scheduled to have on the show tomorrow, follow me, and there will probably be an announcement a little bit later today. So lock in there. But let's get to this here to finish out our tremendous Prediction Tuesday. Nebraska going to Ohio State. Big Noon, the shoe. Going to be a movie of an atmosphere with Big Noon being there. This game preseason had a lot more juice because you're looking at the schedule for Nebraska. You're like, hey, now, Dylan Raiola is who we think he is. Maybe Nebraska shows up there undefeated. Now, the thing we didn't account for was the Fighting Kurt Cignetti's being an absolute wagon. So, Nebraska, they're rolling with 2 losses. It is what it is. Ohio State's favored by 25.5 points. I saw that, and I scoffed at it at first, admittedly, but then I remembered that Indiana did darn near 50-piece Nebraska. So, I don't think Nebraska is necessarily that much behind Indiana. I think that game went how it went, and it got away from Nebraska. We'll talk about Nebraska in a second, but let's start with Ohio State. They're off the bye, okay? Off the bye. The game before, they lost to Oregon. And, like any heartbreak, man, you give yourself some time. You watch the Matthew McConaughey movies. You eat some junk food. You take some time to clear the system. Now, I don't think Ohio State is doing either of those two things, probably just hitting the film room and hitting the reset button on their week. But with that being said, this is the chance now for them to bounce back. And at the same exact time, with them playing Oregon 2 weeks ago now, there's a chance for a little bit of that, okay, how are we feeling? Are we still feeling the weight of that loss? Are we still feeling the weight of that whole situation? Or are we able to hit the reset, remind ourselves we are, in fact, one of, if not the best team in college football from a roster perspective, and we're good to go? If you don't take Nebraska seriously now, you look at the record, look at the Indiana game, they got some pieces now that can make it a little bit intriguing. For Nebraska, I said last week, infamously on this show, Indiana and Nebraska had Matt Rule special written all over it. That was not the case. Hand up on me, that was not the case. Now, however, I do not believe that Matt Rule will allow this team to have one bad showing turn into 2 bad showings. Not telling you Nebraska's going to win the football game, but I am saying that I don't think this is a team that's going to carry the Indiana game with them into Columbus. Now, the beautiful part about this for Nebraska, there's no expectations, man. You roll in here 7-0, probably game days there with Big Noon. Everyone's watching this football game. It is probably the matchup of the weekend. It's 2 ranked teams. It's not the case. All right, you got 2 losses. You're not happy to have 2 losses, but I do think in some ways you're like, all right, let's just go let it rip a little bit here. Let's empty the clip. We got house money. 25.5-point dogs, cool. Can't take anything with us out of this game. This is our best opponent we have on the schedule. Let's go let it freaking rip. And I think in this spot now, I know there's been some questions around the social media sphere and YouTube sphere around Dylan Raiola and how he looked against Indiana from a physical perspective. Talking to people that I know that are close to Nebraska, they said, hey, he's good to go. So we'll see how he looks on game day. But this is that game now. If you're Nebraska, I mentioned Dylan Raiola had to go win the game for you against Indiana, maybe a little bit too ambitious. I'm not saying Dylan Raiola has to go win you the football game against Ohio State with the spread what it is, but to give yourself a chance, you toss him the keys, you say, cut it loose, kid. I think a lot of us remember whenever we first got our license and you drove that car by yourself for the first time. A little bit weird, very much so empowering, but that has to be the moment here for Nebraska with Dylan Raiola. Cut it loose, kid. Here's the keys. We're going to go as you go. Nothing's on the line here. We're not supposed to win this football game. And I'm not saying they're apathetic by any stretch of the imagination, but I do think you got a 5-star quarterback in Dylan Raiola. If you're going to win, it's behind him. It's behind him. Up front, it'll be a tough task, both offensively and defensively for Nebraska. I think they'll be up for it, but this is the spot now where you say, Dylan Raiola, cut it loose. Brian Billick, coach of the Ravens a couple years ago, they used to do those America's Game documentaries that were I want to say 30 to 40 minute just docs, like I said, about a team's Super Bowl season. And Brian Billick has a great interview in that documentary where I forget who they're going to play. Maybe it was the AFC Championship game. I forget. But he has a great quote when talking to the media. He says, listen, when you go into the Lions' den, you don't tippy-toe in. You go in there screaming like a banshee and say, where is the son of a gun? He doesn't say gun, but you hear what I'm saying. That's the same thing for Nebraska here. You don't tippy-toe in. You don't say, okay, we'll try and run the football and take time off the clock, shorten the game. No, man. You saw what Oregon did. bunch of NFL players in that secondary for Ohio State, but, like, go after them, gosh dang it. Swing your sword. Rest in peace, Mike Leach. Like, go after them. Defensively, same thing. Let's throw the kitchen sink out there. Tony White, I think he's going to be a head coach next year. It's just my opinion. I think he's qualified to be a head coach next year, should he choose to be. Like, if you get beat defensively for Nebraska, just don't let it be the same way it happened against Indiana. Like, let's sell out for the run a little bit here. Sell out is obviously a relative term there. You don't want to totally just go engage at every play, but, like, don't let it be by 6 yards a carry. Okay, Quinshon Judkins, a little bit dinged up. Travion Henderson, going to carry the load. You'd have to believe. Again, I don't have any. Quinshon Judkins had a procedure on his hand. We'll say that much. Travion Henderson going to be a guy that you expect to see probably more carries if we're using common sense there. But if I'm Nebraska, I'm like, let's go make Will Howard prove it. Like, can he do it multiple games in a row? Again, I think if I'm Ohio State, I feel good about that. I like my chances if it's Will Howard. But, like, if we can disrupt him, if we can be exotic, if we can, kind of speed up that internal shot clock, who knows? Who knows? 25.5 point spread. Again, what do you have to lose? Throw the kitchen sink. So here's the thing, though. In this game, we still do have to make a prediction. And even if you take away the run game, like, let's say that Nebraska plays phenomenal. They do go the engage it kind of method when you play the college football 25 video game, and they do sell it to stop the run. Let's say they have success. You still then do have to win the battle on the perimeter. And with Jeremiah Smith and Emeka Egbuka, it's tough for me to predict a situation where Nebraska wins that battle consistently enough to win the football game. It would require some havoc, right? It would require Will Howard to have a multi-interception game. It would have to require him missing on some, let's just call a spade here, makeable throws. That's tough to predict. It's tough to, like, predict just havoc and anarchy, so we won't do that here. I think Nebraska actually battles a little bit in this game, especially early. I think that Matt Rule will have this team ready to play. However, I do think Ohio State wins the football game. So we'll take Ohio State to win. 25.5 is a lot of points, dude. I get last week was last week if you're Nebraska, but, like, I'll take Nebraska to cover that 25.5 on the road against Ohio State, even if it is backdoor. Still covers the same. So Ohio State win, Nebraska cover, and on to the next for both sides of that whole thing. On to the next is right, man. On to the next. That was, I think that's a Jay-Z song from one of the Blueprint albums. On to the next, on to the next one. Well, we're about to be on the next one here. I want to make sure I give a quick little opportunity for us to save some money here together. So tap in because crispy season is upon us. The hard count brought to you by Roback. If you have some summer weather, or I guess it resembles more spring weather now, even though it's not the closest season to us. Regardless, if you got some heat still, cherish that. But for a lot of us, moving into pumpkin spice season, moving into crispy windshield season, lock in with Roback. They got everything you need. Joggers, tees, hoodies. They used to have a fleece, and that was absolute cash money. So if they have that, go grab that right now. Bottom line, they're taking care of all of us this college football season. If you say, JD, I'm not in crispy season just yet, for whatever reason, the Lord has smiled on us and we got some heat still rolling, that's great. They got shorts, they got polos, whatever you need for game day. I'm just telling you, Roback, they got you. All right, they are for the people, by the people. They've been with us since Waco, Texas. They are some college football real ones, and they have put their money where their mouth is, leading the NIL charge. They got people like Jalen Milroe dialed in, Quinn Ewers, Caleb Downs, Cade Klubnik. They're becoming the go-to brand for college athletes. So here's the deal. Here's where we save some money now. Together. So we do everything together on this show. Together. Use code JD on Roback.com for a generous, now 20% off all new customers. That's spelled RHOBACK.com. 20% off performance polos, shorts, hoodies, Q-zips. You're trying to keep it fresh for a game day. Whatever you need with code JD at Roback.com. No periods there, too. Just JD. All right, so far, so good. No phone call from the wife, so looks like no baby, at least while we're on the air. But we appreciate y'all making the show what it is. Again, extremely, extremely grateful for y'all to be college football sickos and to be tuned into this thing. Great show tomorrow. Now, again, we're supposed to have a guest tomorrow. Follow on all the socials at JD Piquel. As soon as we have that dialed in, we will announce it on there who that guest is. But if not, we still have hotel playoff tomorrow. We got some more game predictions throughout the course of this week. We will get to our G5 pick this week, whether it's tomorrow or Thursday, with our guy Caden Smith talking some 12 seed when it comes to UNLV Boise State, Friday night, Sicko's Hour. A lot to talk about this week throughout the show, so make sure you're locked in. For Nick Brake on the 1s and 2s, for myself, J.D. Buckell, we appreciate y'all and we love y'all. Going to keep this party rolling. We will see y'all next time.